something in it. But there's no way of knowing what all the downstream effects will be or how it might affect the environment. We have such a miserably poor understanding of how the organism develops from its DNA that I would be surprised if we don't get one rude shock after another. That's Professor Richard LeBlanton, professor of genetics at Harvard, and that says it all right there. They thought 96% of our DNA was junk. They've told us they can just manipulate GMO organisms and feed them to animals, and it doesn't matter what the consequences are. Doesn't matter if it's causing new foodborne allergies. Doesn't matter if it's a total genocidal epidemic. Just we know best. We're the scientists. We're the elite. I'm furious about this, but I'm going to go now to Alex's extended update. He's got all kinds of news coverage, and then after that, a powerful interview. Stay tuned. This is the Infowars Nightly News. You can support us, of course, at prisonplanet.tv, and you can create your own channel of information and help get the word out at planetinfowars.com. Thanks for watching.
I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of people, especially media whores in mainstream media, telling us all day that we live in the freest, greatest country in the world. I love America. I care about our republic, and our nation certainly in the past was one of the models for freedom. I'm proud of America, and that's why I'm tired of globalists that have hijacked this country, lecturing me all day that I should be happy about our loss of liberties because, after all, we're free. They have different university gauges and breakdowns around the world that show on the index of economic freedom, the United States is now 18th. And when it comes to civil liberties, we're even worse. This country is losing its basic freedoms. In fact, in some of the statistics I've seen, we're rated number 6 in the world as the worst police state out there. But those are just statistics. Look at the evidence. We have one of the lowest life expectancies in the industrialized world. We have the lowest test scores in the industrialized world. We're now behind a bunch of third world nations. We have the worst obesity, the highest cancer rates, the highest autism rates. Across the board, America is falling apart by design. And now the globalists are saying they want to censor the internet, and they want to arrest peaceful protesters and have the Department of Defense ask the court to keep them in jail because terrorism is being committed by their protest. We see the new terrorism manual saying that gun owners, conservatives, libertarians, returning veterans are the #1 terror threat, not Al-Qaeda that our government publicly runs and is turning loose in the Middle East. Paul Watson wrote a big story today titled 30 Examples of Why America is No Longer a Free Country. And I want to look at just a few of the examples here. I mean, look at these. All over the nation, mothers and fathers are being arrested for their children playing in the front yard or in the cul-de-sac or in the backyard. People are being arrested for lemonade stands. The Amish are being SWAT teamed for selling milk to their neighbors. The system has gone wild, and this has happened many times before in history. Here are just a few of these examples. In fact, the first one, we're going to be interviewing this woman coming up in studio in the next segment. Sidewalk chalk provokes police. The woman wrote, YouTube Building 7, the 47-story building that wasn't hit by a plane that fell on 9/11, and so they arrested her and are charging her with felony vandalism. Here's another example out of the New York Post. New York City schools give out morning after pills to students without telling the parents of 10, 11, and 12-year-olds. All over the United States, public schools are taking 11, 12, 13-year-olds to have abortions without getting parental consent. In California and New Jersey, they're giving children inoculations without parental consent and saying it's okay, the child gave consent. So what happens when a pedophile tries to pick up your 10-year-old? Will it be okay because the child gave consent? Children can't give consent until 18 years of age. That's why if, oh, the 10-year-old bought the heroin from me, they gave consent. They cannot give consent. Government is acting like drug dealers and perverts, pedophiles. Quite frankly, they're made up of a bunch of those people, so what do you expect? The worst elements are getting into government. Criminals are getting into government, so they have a badge to protect themselves. Here's another one. New Jersey attempts to strip parental rights with vaccine anti-exemption bill. They're saying we don't care if you don't want to give your kids shots. We're going to force them to take them. See, in the past, they've lied and said it's the law to take vaccines. Now that people are finding out that's a lie, another hoax, they're saying, okay, we'll pass a law. Just like they've passed laws in multiple states to say, hey, no more sodium fluoride in our water that brain damages and gives us cancer. And so now the feds are coming in and getting the states to pass laws blocking cities and counties from not having fluoride in their water. Even when the Harvard study came out 2 months ago admitting 20-point IQ reductions and massive cancer increases. Here's another one. Remember this one? Woman faces jail time for growing vegetable garden in her own lawn. ABC News. Boom. And there wasn't even a law up in Michigan that she couldn't have a garden. They just said, we find it objectionable. We in the zoning board. Tennessee man arrested and imprisoned for using cash. This came out of the Shelbyville Gazette. And in this report, he paid for something with a 50 that was a real 50, but was the 50s before 5 years ago that didn't have the color on them. And so they arrested him, and the cops said, we don't care if it was real money, so-called real money, Federal Reserve money. You should have new money. You should have new money, you American scum. So there's that report. Here's another one. Texas woman sues Walmart for ripping up her $100 bills. She's trying to pay for 50-something dollars with 100. They say, this isn't real, and rip it up. The manager comes. She says, look, I got another one. I just sold my car. It's real. He rips it up again. The police come and go, no, it's a real $100 bill. Folks, this is the demonization of cash. I went to a Starbucks where I rarely go a few weeks ago and bought $20+ worth of stuff. Croissants for my kids, milks for them, coffees for my wife and I, a bottle of water. 20-something bucks. I give the woman a 50. It's all I had. She goes, I can't do this. I said, well, see if it's real. She puts the mark. Doesn't matter. I can't. I said, you get your manager. Oh, Alex, what are you doing? Causing problems. Knew who I was. I said, causing problems? You want everything tracked. Well, it gets worse. It just came out earlier this week that in Florida, and the court ruled it's okay, paying with a $5 bill, 50s down to 5s, they call the police on you and put you in a database. It is absolutely amazing that they put you in a database for using cash. The toll roads are already tracking where you go. The transponders you use, they've caught them tracking you outside of the toll road areas. The toll roads are buying up newspapers, buying up mayors where I live, so no one can oppose. This is how you control societies. The Romans said all roads lead to Rome. That's how they control commerce. So there's that report. Total demonization of cash across the board. Continuing, society now criminalizing parents that allow children to play in the yard. I got this lady coming on later in the week. A woman outside Houston, a rural area, had her children playing on bicycles and scooters in a cul-de-sac area. My kids did that when we lived in the city. And they came and arrested her even though she was in the front yard watching them. And we've got other reports of where this is happening with mothers with their kids in the backyard. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know where the world's going, it's going to this article today by Paul Joseph Watson at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. It's also on the left-hand side of DrudgeReport.com if you can't find it on Infowars.com. And the Communist Party officials, in front of everyone, where they were kicking these farmers off their land, said, drive the steamroller over the person. Shades of Tiananmen Square when one person didn't just stop one tank, but more than 20 tanks backed out behind them when you see the full uncropped photo. And whereas 20-something years ago, we all felt empathy for a lone human standing up against tyranny, now today, it's not even in our news when China engages in these incredible types of tyranny. So if you want to know where the world's going, the globalists have signed on to ship all our jobs to China, not to help the Chinese people, who are hard-working, smart folks, but to deindustrialize us and lower the global standard of living, to create poverty so we're more manageable and controllable. As Aaron Dykes' piece last night broke down eloquently, Agenda 21 is the communist Chinese model. In fact, Maury Strong and others have admitted that. That's their model. So this is the incredible dehumanization. Look at this report out of the Wall Street Journal. Apple supplier Foxconn says fight at plants spread into larger unrest. This is where they have suicide nets around the factories. They have pregnancy tests, and if you're pregnant, they abort your baby at abortuaries on the spot. And again, the worst offenders in this entire situation is the factories that are being funded and run by Apple and Al Gore on its board while he lectures us about human rights all day and how great NAFTA and GATT would be and how paying him and the Rothschild exchange trillions of dollars a year for carbon dioxide that plants breathe is going to save the earth. These people are a joke. And if you want to know where all this is going, you need to read the article by Melissa Melton for Rent, your very own Agenda 21 shoebox apartment, where they charge you more than a 5,000 square foot apartment for 250 to 300 square feet. That's how these scammers operate. And in all the major parties in almost every country. The few countries they don't control, they're busy trying to overthrow right now. These are scientific tyrants. And I leave you with this in this report by Frank Zappa. Politics is the entertainment division of the military-industrial complex, and he is absolutely right. We're going to go to break and come back here on Infowars Nightly News with Amy Larson, who was arrested and charged with a felony. She's facing a year in jail, $10,000 fine. Her arraignment's tomorrow for drawing on chalk, with chalk on the sidewalk, what she paid for, totally protected political speech that you should YouTube Building 7. Just like they arrested that Marine, Brandon Robb, for writing about Building 7 on his Facebook. They're scared, folks, that when you see the cops saying, get back, they're blowing it up, and they blow up that building, they blew them all up. They know it's over. They know they'll go to prison. They have committed to this eugenics takeover. They are going all the way. They're not going to back off unless we have a mass awakening to these criminals and say no to these people now. Listen, you're not a slave, and it's time to say no to the system. It's time to resist the system. It's time to say, you're out of line. I just had my reporters call me before we shot this, Melissa Melton and Jakari Jackson. I sent them down to film the NSA in San Antonio, which spies on everybody illegally, and I knew they'd send the cops up, tell them they couldn't film, and they handed them the ACLU print-offs and the lawsuits that have been won showing you can film government buildings and you can film the TSA. They erased the San Antonio Express news photos a few years ago, and the other local paper. They didn't do it to our reporters because they knew their rights, and they didn't even have to threaten them with a lawsuit. I'm here to defend this republic. I'm here to keep freedom and basic liberties alive, and if we don't stand up for them, we'll lose them. But they backed off. We're training our servants that they're just that, servants, and that the basic liberties and freedoms we're trying to defend are their rights as well. That's their most prized possession as well. Even though they don't know it's their most important possession, it is. All right, we're going to go to break and come back with a true fighter for liberty, a lady who went to jail. The police made fun of her, said horrible things to her. Wait till you hear this story coming up after the break for daring to ride on the sidewalk that people should look into government murder. Again, if they didn't like what she did in the sidewalk, well, they better get ready, because it's going to happen everywhere. Every time they attack us, we redouble our efforts. Every time they try to shut us up, we intensify our operations. That's why I did this 5 years ago. I only had 5 or 6 crew members. I wanted to stay small. I wanted to be a boutique information warfare operation to encourage others. But because people tried to shut me down, every time they tried it, I simply redouble. Okay? You got to have that commitment, not to just fight back when they try to tyrannize us, but to surge, to turbo surge against tyranny, because that spirit of eternal resistance against dehumanization is what will propel us to true liberty and what will propel us to the stars. We're going to break. We'll be right back with a true champion of liberty. Stay with us. This and take it upon themselves to exercise their First Amendment in a new civil rights movement to chalk their political messages, whether it's 9/11's an inside job, or Google Building 7, or Start Page Building 7, or check out Infowars.com, or GMO kills, or whatever it is. That's why I did a program 5 or 6 times now, hanging up posters in legal, lawful areas to show how they flip out when it's a political message, not a, ad for your garage sale. We have to exercise this now or lose it. So I'm going to call for Free Speech Week, where everyone goes out and chalks the sidewalk, where everyone goes out and films police, where everyone goes out and films the TSA, which on their own website they say is legal and lawful, but they lie to individuals, including my reporters, and tell them it isn't. We have to let these servants know that they are our servants and we're not their slaves. Now, Amy, I'm ranting. You're the victim of this. Get to the point of her slapping the cuffs on you, what transpired there, and where we're going.
Well, so when she realized that I was not going to give her any of my personal information other than my name and that I live in town, she said, well, then I'm going to have to arrest you. She called her supervising officer over at some point. This is not a young officer. She was not a rookie or anything like that, and neither was her supervisor that showed up in an SUV behind her, and they proceeded to put handcuffs on me. I still had my backpack on. They couldn't get it off. She had to grip my wrist super tightly to make sure I wasn't going to flee, and they arrested me. And then
No, that's all part of the act. That's why they'll do $1.5 million investigations of Amish undercover showing them sell neighbors milk to show the jury, look, they're dirty. It was secret, even though they were riding up in their wagon and giving it to neighbors who were really feds who demanded to buy it. It's all part of the act. We're putting cuffs on you. You're bad. We're not the bad ones trampling on America and basic freedom. You're bad. It's all part of the show.
Yeah. And I was calm throughout throughout my entire visit to the jail. I was respectful to all the officers. They were saying horrible things to me, happy that I don't have children. Someone like me who doesn't have children, they treat you like a criminal to begin with.
Oh, they'd love to take your kids, yeah.
Yeah, so...
the state's 7 times more likely than any other group to abuse children, so...
Absolutely. Yeah, so...
They're all suspect. They're all suspect, not you.
Yeah, I mean, I was totally innocent at that point, and I did reference that, I haven't done anything wrong. I don't understand why you're treating me like this.
They have to dehumanize you because of the crimes they're committing. Continue with what kind of things do they say to you?
Well, at that point, mainly they put the handcuffs on, and I sat in the squad car, for a while, and I was crying at that point. That's the only time I really lost
Well, that gave them a lot of pleasure. That's what, yeah.
It was scary, basically you're in a cage, and that's the worst thing I can possibly think of. I mean, we're in a cage in a lot of ways with all the laws that we have in this country.
I'll tell you what's worse, being people like them that sadistically get off on a woman crying and that power trip. That's far worse. At least you have a soul and a mind and an intellect. Imagine them so feeble that all they can feel is grief, and I've seen a lot of police that actually suck and feed off of it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you saw him beat that schizophrenic man to death as he begged for Papa, whose dad was a cop. See, it'll all come back on them. And they were actually engorging themselves, it's in good light, feeding on the death. And the 15 minutes of torture death is like a demonic, vampiric feeding. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's out of control. The police state is a big problem, and I mean, I am a very private person, but I am happy to draw attention to this issue.
Okay, well, continue. So you cry, you get down there, they say you're a terrible person, basically. What else did they say there at the camp?
I had to ask them to put my seatbelt on as she swerved over on the other side of the street while she was driving back to to downtown to the jail. They continued to want to ask me questions, and I said I'm not comfortable answering any of these. So I'm sure she charged it as best she could.
Well, no. I mean, there's no more any Miranda. She was just building a false case against you because she wants to nail you and put you in jail for a year for chalk. She wants to hurt the person for speech. She wants to hurt you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You're the enemy. They're militarized. You're a civilian. They're the occupying force. Continue.
Yeah, so when I got there, they were shoving me against the wall, ripping earrings out of my ears. I volunteered that I had a pocket knife. I let them know immediately. They got rid of it. I had been totally groped. I don't fly because I don't want to be touched and I don't want to be scanned. And so I got it anyways by Ms. Police Officer when I got there. And then they took them off and let me remove the rest of, my nose ring and other things that they didn't want to touch. So I don't see why they had to do that.
No, well, listen, these are people that the raw act of dominating makes their ego feel big. But continue.
It seemed to be the case. So there was 2 officers at that point, and once Ms. Good Cop, or Bad Cop left, the other guy saw, I had some Ron Paul things on my backpack and said, I like Ron Paul too. What do you like about him? And I talked about a lot of civil liberties and things.
That's probably for his intelligence file, but continue.
Fair enough. But, yeah, so at that point, I was hanging out in the booking area for a long time. They took fingerprints, they took handprints, they took sides of my hands prints, photographs, and then they were trying to pressure me into taking a DNA cheek swab. And I finally refused on that and said,
well, that way they can frame you later, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So they threatened me on that and said, well, you're going to be charged with another crime if you don't give us the swab. And I said, show me with the law. And they said, well, it's been shown constitutional. And I said, well, that doesn't actually make it constitutional.
Actually, it hasn't. But listen, let's just expand on that. Threatening you with charging you with more trumped-up fake charges if you don't let them dominate you.
Yes. And so they also let me know that I said, well, will I get my DNA back after all the charges are dropped? And he said, no, this goes into a database and it's irretrievable.
Yeah, just like when you were born, they took blood from you as a baby, and now if you ever go get a DNA treatment, the companies announce that your body has been patented and they charge you millions of dollars.
Yeah, so I mean, I know they have it anyways, but they were claiming that I wasn't going to be released until I gave one, and so he did pull up the code or whatever, crazy thing that they're saying it's legal, and so I ended up giving him one later on, so I hung out there, got some tubes of peanut butter and white bread. No water was given to me except for the filthy bathroom that I could try and drink out of the sink. And then I was outfitted with state-issued underwear, socks, shirts, the whole deal, and taken up to an area where there was about 15 to 18. It fluctuated, other women in about 3 to a room, and they were actually very nice to me and trying to be helpful and give advice and kind of their experiences and things. As I'm being taken up in the elevator, I'm letting other officers know I'm here for chalking a sidewalk. And they all know what the big problem here also is that so many people along the way could have done something and said, this is out of line, let's stop it right here and let her go. Instead of holding me overnight. I mean, it was a very interesting experience. I guess that's one way to look at it, but it was completely unnecessary.
Well, they have to play along with themselves. Again, it's all about theater. The government's good, we're bad. When the government injects little kids with syphilis or HIV shots as they've been caught, or with polio, and kill little kids, that's loving science. But when you chalk, that's big and bad. When the military lets the troops use DU, that's a death sentence, that's reasonable. But when somebody goes to protest, they have to be arrested as a terrorist at the DNC. And so this is the new America we live in. You live in California, where they give children abortions at age 10 without parental consent. They give little kids morning after pills. They give them inoculations without parental consent. So, I mean, you live in a very, 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 globalist-styled system that is really the model of the rest of the country. But specifically, different news articles in the local paper, in the Register, in Patch, you said that was a better article. I mean, what is the community's response since this happened a few days ago to the thought criminal? I mean, are some people saying perhaps you should get the death penalty now?
I have definitely been reading all the comments. There's been a lot of them. It's been a hot topic. It's the #1 article in Patch this month, which is a great website. The author that runs that website gave me a very fair interview, and I believe she's somewhat awake, a good person. Yeah, a lot of the comments have been in my favor. You definitely have a lot of the statists that think that they should run everyone else's lives and use the government to do that. And there have been a lot of people coming to my defense, and obviously this is so silly. I think most people realize this is so silly. People are bringing up the children using chalk, the stores that sell it as sidewalk chalk.
Listen, here's the deal. Notice how we as normal people try to defend ourselves. This is flaming tyranny. This is North Korea. This is Nazi Germany. And look, I'm going out this week, and we're doing it, guys. We're going to hang more of those Obama posters, more of the Republican posters, mittens, and we're going to chalk Austin up one road and down the other. I'm going to South Congress. I'm going all over. We're going to do it, and I'm telling you, I think everybody should go out now and chalk YouTube Building 7 and Google Building 7 and throw an Infowars.com in there. And everybody should fight this. The fact that these tyrants think that they've enslaved us so much that they're now going to try to put you in jail for a year and $10,000 fine, and the fact that the cops would hype themselves up and go, yeah, you're a bad person. No, they're bad people. They are shameful, pathetic creatures. That city needs to be sued. They all need to be sued to teach them a lesson. These people are unbelievable.
I think it's been really helpful in waking up a lot of people that think, oh, it's fine if I just go along and mind my own business. You know, a lot of people are saying, oh, she should have just shown ID. That's not the point. I'm not going to show.
No, they were gonna get you then.
Yeah.
I mean, they were gonna get you then.
People are surprised that that is even the law, and so a lot of people, well, you should change the law then. Well, yes, absolutely we should.
But listen. Even the ACLU covered this 3 weeks ago. I mean, people can look this up. They got the Department of Defense was commanding the police to arrest peaceful protesters, and then the Department of Defense, not even supposed to operate domestically, the military, went to the judge and said, keep these protesters protesting as low-level terrorism. It actually said low-level terrorism. The military being involved is red flags. Now saying arrest protesters, look, it's darker than most people know. And the fact that all over the country, they're arresting people for lemonade stands. I've got stacks of articles I covered before we went to this interview where people with $5 bills are being arrested. People are being detained. People that use money that's 5 or 6 years old before it became colored, they're being arrested. And the cops are saying later, it doesn't matter, it's real. You should have new money. Because you've got all these people that think they get their power from the state. And they think that it's fun to send people to jail. It's like a video game for them. Well, I've been ranting here during this. Other points you'd like to make about where this is going? What do you think of my idea to have everyone go out and exercise their First Amendment?
I think you saying that is certainly fine. I have yet to talk to a lawyer or any